everybody, and welcome to another episode of Connect with KB. It is so great to have you tuning in again as we talk about business and education, leadership, networking, and all the wonderful things that connect us to each other. My guest today is a longtime friend who started his own wealth management business 2 years ago in the height of the pandemic. With offices in Lansing and Grand Rapids, Zack Armstrong is building Allied Integrated Wealth into a powerhouse and is showing young professionals that leaders come in all ages. Zack, welcome to Connect with KB. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
Absolutely. Pull that mic over right in front of you so we can hear you really well.
There we go.
Betcha. That sounds much better. I want you to tell me the Zack Armstrong story.
All right. Well, so I guess it all started when I was about 5 or 6. Okay. I would scheme with my parents different ways to incentivize my chores.
I love it.
So I got them to agree if I vacuumed out their cars, the deal was that I got to keep all the change inside.
Beautiful.
So I convinced my mom to help me open up a bank account, and I would do all these odds and end chores. Sorry for them when they went to go park, but saving just came naturally very young, and I think that led to the career decisions I made later on in life.
How did that happen, though? I mean, was that just natural for you that you saw the value of money real quick? Was it your mom and dad? Were they talking to you a lot about saving, or how did that journey start? You just had that mind for compounding interest and putting money away and starting with that.
Yeah, maybe I was a strange kid, but both my parents are from the agricultural side.
Yeah.
So we didn't really talk money directly. I knew about it. They enforced savings, good habits, and stuff like that, but it just came naturally.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where'd you go to school? What was the journey like through college? And share that with the listeners.
Yeah. So I kind of moved around. I was born in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we kind of just hopped college towns because my dad worked for universities. So academia is very
Yep. And
very
where's
involved.
He now?
He's at California, Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo.
Great town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. So Raleigh, North Carolina, West Lafayette, Purdue, and then Michigan State when I was 11. And pretty much Lansing, Okemos has been my home ever since. Moving to Grand Rapids the last couple of years. Went to Okemos High School. There's where I started really getting into stocks, and I was like paper trading currencies and doing all these things to kind of immerse myself in the industry. And after high school, went to Michigan State, where I focused on finance and economics as a minor.
And so that the whole journey through MSU and then getting into that first job, what was that like? How did you do that? And obviously you stayed in the area because you and I have known each other for a while, and that's how we met right here in Lansing. But talk about getting that first job.
Yeah, so I was lucky. I kind of knew what I wanted to do early on. So when I graduated Michigan State, I just wanted to pick the specific field within the industry because there's so many different areas you can go into. So I actually moved out to California because my parents were living out there and was really just feeling it out. I started it's called the Chartered Financial Analyst Designation Journey, which is a pretty rigorous program for portfolio management and all of that. So I started that path right away just because I knew it was something I wanted to do, and I could kind of figure out the rest as I went.
Sure.
And then actually my growing up in Okemos, my neighbor was actually a wealth management gentleman who I had no idea, and he connected me, and that kind of snowballed into my first job.
Oh my God, that is so great. And that's generally how it works. You know, the whole running into somebody who happens to be your neighbor, who happens to be in that particular field, and they guide you. So you started a job right here in Lansing. How long were you there, and what firm were you at?
It's called Sienna Wealth Advisors.
Yep.
They're now called Buckingham. So I started as a trading role, customer service, was there for about 7 to 8 years, but eventually worked my way up to be their chief investment officer.
Great. Well, then you decided at some point in time to be an entrepreneur, and talk a little bit about that. How'd you make that decision? And then, you kind of took your journey over to Grand Rapids. Let's talk a little bit about that and how that happened.
Well, it was, I'm all about continuously learning and growth, and I was just at a point in my career where it was kind of a fork in the road moments, and I either needed to go one way or kind of bet on myself. And I always had that entrepreneurial bug. Maybe it was from my jobs as a small kid, but
right.
It always excited me, and so I just kind of took a leap of faith, really wanted to bet on myself and decided, I'm young. Now's the time to do it.
Now, during the pandemic in 2020 is when you did that. I tell you what, that takes a lot of guts. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to do it and be bold when everything's fine, but during the pandemic. So how did you start? Talk about the name of the firm right now and what you're working on.
So a gentleman in Okemos, his name's Dan Putman. His son was actually my college roommate. He's a wealth advisor. So he really helped me build the backbone and make the connections with a firm called SPC out of Ann Arbor. They do my back office and compliance stuff. So the building blocks were there. And then from there, it was just, okay, what do you name the firm? How do you build it? And so I racked my brain for, felt like eternity and landed on Allied Integrated Wealth because to me, it meant something. And I didn't want it just to be about me. Zack Armstrong advisors or what have you. So Allied, I want to be your ally. Sit on the same side of the table. Eliminate conflicts of interest that are apparent in our business, and really align myself with the goals of the family and put them and their interests first.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about the services. What are the services that you offer?
So it's holistic wealth management. So everything's centered around a long-term wealth plan, which is all the decisions you make today, what does it mean in the future? And then from there, we actually run it through thousands of different market scenarios to really stress test your portfolio over the long term so that the decisions we're making today are grounded in statistics and research.
You and I have had an opportunity to do a little work together, and it's incredible to me the amount of technology that is available to help you in that job of running all these different scenarios for people. And has that really changed a lot for you since you just got into the business?
Going out on my own, I put a lot more effort and resources behind technology. One, just being remote capabilities was crucial.
Yeah.
Considering when I opened up my business and the timing of everything. So that's big. And I think it's just constantly evolving, especially in our industry right now. The technology is just going to be more and more of a role.
Well, and it is so helpful, especially during this time. The market seems so volatile. Talk a little bit about that. What should people be doing right now in regards to their portfolios? And these are the moments when things start to take a dip and people, you don't want to say the word panic, but as Ted Lasso would say, there are two buttons you never want to push, the panic button and the snooze button.
Exactly.
But how do you talk to people about the market, and what kind of guidance would you give people right now, your clients?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, in my experience, the wealthiest individuals and the most successful investors are very plan driven and not reacting to the market. I think the most detrimental mistakes are those that are done based on emotions or trying to time the market. So being planning focused is key. Second, you got to realize that there's billions, hundreds of billions of dollars being traded every single day. That's trillions over the years. And that's, hedge fund managers, you and me, all of those decisions and the people that are trading, all of their opinions are coming into the market because for every buyer, there's got to be a seller, and for every seller, there's got to be a buyer. So everybody's opinions are coming to the market, and all of that information is really being priced in today. So timing the market's really difficult. The best bet during these times is to focus on your plan. If nothing has changed with your plan long term and your goals, the best thing to do is just ride out these temporary declines in the market. Because
it generally will. I mean, what is that? What's the average time that it takes for, or does it depend on what you're in that it bounces back?
It definitely depends on what you're in. So I like to focus on what you can control. And that's the risk that you take in the market. It's got to be appropriate for your risk tolerance personally and your long-term plan. Get you where you want to go. So you need to focus on your risk tolerance. And if you're losing sleep at night based on the volatility, maybe your risk tolerance is out of line with your current portfolio. So you really should reassess that.
Do you find clients that are risk averse? And, how do you help people? Is it a lot of that questioning about what kind of lifestyle they want to live? What are their goals in terms of how long they're going to work? And all of those factors that come into it?
Yes, all of those are key. But to me, there's three big questions. One's your need to take risk. Okay, I'm young. I've got a long time horizon for retirement. I need to take risk now so I can retire later. Then it's your ability, time horizon. That's the biggest factor with your ability to take risk. And then lastly, it's your need to take, or your willingness to take risk. Kind of the gut check when these markets and everybody's reactions during these times are different.
Sure.
So you have to put all those factors together where you want to go with balancing the now.
How about looking at their portfolio every day? Is that something you suggest or no?
No, I don't.
I think that just increases people's blood pressure. They feel that they should be doing something. And so I wanted to hear it right from you that it is, as much as you want to, don't do it. It's kind of probably like watching the scale a little bit too. You shouldn't probably do that either. Let's talk a little bit about academic research has found various factors or set parameters certain stocks exhibit and explain their behavior. What does that really mean? What does the average investor learn or can they learn to analyze their own portfolio?
So I follow a philosophy called evidence-based investing. It's kind of like you go to the doctor, you want the peer-reviewed academic research guiding his or her recommendations for your current health. So it's the same thing, applying the academic research to building a portfolio based on something called modern portfolio theory. So it's a globally diversified portfolio, and then you can incorporate these factors that you mentioned. And these factors are a way to classify groups of companies based on their earnings and whatnot. So a good example is value stocks. Everybody knows Warren Buffett is the most famous value investor, but there's a way to look at companies and price them and figure out which ones are relatively on sale. And those have proven to outperform over the long term. So it's a healthy mix of being globally diversified, incorporating these factors with the right risk tolerance for you.
Right. Well, some of it is, and I kind of like this, working with you is like having your own CFO. And I think for people that it's all about trust. They want to trust someone, obviously, with their money and their future and what that looks like. But you're not saying that people really need to have to overanalyze. They don't need to know too much, enough to be able to have a conversation about it and guide a little bit, but to leave that work really to you, that's your expertise and really about staying in your lane sometimes, about the guidance that you're giving your clientele.
Well, your financial health is really important. You hire a doctor for your medical health. I see the same thing with your financial life. Everything needs to be working in concert. So the holistic approach really matters. What's the optimal emergency fund? Because there is an opportunity cost of having too much cash and we know what banks are paying on the cash balances now. So it's those factors, incorporating your risk management policies that you work with your insurance provider with. You're working with your estate planning attorney to make sure that's incorporated with your plan. So everything's working in concert on your behalf. Do
you find people that they have too much cash, that they just want to keep it because it's safer for them and you have to kind of guide and push sometimes?
So that's a little bit back to the willingness. Some people it's peace of mind to have a larger cash balance, and that's totally fine. But there's ways to optimize that emergency fund.
Sure.
Maybe it's like a CD ladder with certificate of deposits or something like that. There's some high yield online savings accounts, but it's really dependent on the person. And a good rule of thumb is like 3 to 6 months of cash needs.
Yeah. What were some of the highs and lows of becoming an entrepreneur during the pandemic?
Well, it's been a roller coaster. That is true. It's you make the jump and it's just you. So you're dependent on yourself. I really like that aspect, and I thrive in that environment of multitasking, wearing different hats and all of that. But it was interesting timing during the pandemic. So luckily, I had a good foundation to help me. Dan Putman helped me with connecting and just focusing on what I can control and one step at a time and leveraging technology. That's been the biggest factor to help me. I've got clients in California, Texas, and
was it also the business aspect? Was that all kind of brand new to you as well? I mean, you knew kind of the finance side, but getting a business up and running and having to tap into people and help and that kind of thing. Did that come easy, or was it just part of your risk tolerance as well? So that you're like, okay, well, I know I need to do this. Was it easy to do that? And the reason I ask you this is because, for someone who's young, your age, to jump in and do this, it's bold. I said that earlier. And so, what would be your lesson to somebody if they wanted to do that same type of thing?
So for me, it was a balance of both. I had some experience at Sienna. I helped open up another office location in Williamston. So I had a little bit of the experience of buying couches and furniture and organizing and building the processes
Sure.
of managing 2 different offices. But really, I think the biggest advice is lean on your network.
Absolutely.
Reach out to those.
That's going to take me right into the next question that I had for you. I want you to talk about your involvement in like the local communities. You and I have known each other from Lansing, knowing each other from our Lansing Regional Chamber days, you being an ambassador there. How did your network get you to this point?
Oh, I think it was critical to be involved in the community. One, I think it's the right thing to do, to be involved in your backyard and give back. But also, I've gained friends like UKB, and you're meeting the future leaders of tomorrow in your cohort that are involved in the Lansing Chamber or the local chambers in your area. I think it's second to none.
Did it give you a chance to think about those people being clients, and did that work out to your advantage?
Yes. And there's also those other professionals, like, for instance, I'm not licensed in the insurance realm. I can speak intelligently to it, but I need those connections to be able to refer my clients to that I trust. And so that's a big part of networking in the community. When
you talk about your network, and you mentioned to me last week that you have an intern, and let's talk a little bit about that. Who do you want to share who that is, and are you comfortable doing that, or you just want to talk a little bit about that journey with an intern and what that means, and how does that look for you now? You still being a young professional who's mentoring a young professional.
Yeah, it's been so much fun having him involved. I saw my path and my journey to where I started to now as kind of what I'm building with him and hopefully others in the future. But really, I think having the team approach and having someone shadow you and learning the ropes is the biggest learning factor you can have. Learn by doing. My dad would love to hear me say.
He would?
Because that's the Cal Poly motto. It's learn by doing. I think being hands-on, getting involved is the best learning tool.
I completely agree. And I so appreciate the fact that you're paying it forward already. And, as you look kind of down the road, what does your firm look like over the next 5 to 10 years? What would you like it to look like?
I'd love to have, 2 or 3 interns that eventually join into that young advisory role, trading exactly what I did the customer service. Eventually they would transition into their own advisor with a second younger advisor. So you always have the team approach with your clients, and you're always moving down the path to becoming a full-time advisor.
You are still getting an education. I think you just finished and got some other type of certification recently. Tell me what that was.
So I finished my master's at the end of 2020 in accounting and tax, and I'm happy to say I passed the 4th CPA exam, finally. So there's a couple more hurdles to be fully licensed so I can use it, but I'm happy to say I passed the test.
If people want to get involved and start to build a relationship with you, how do they get in touch with Zack Armstrong?
Oh, LinkedIn. That's my cell phone number on my website, so they can reach out directly. Really don't hesitate to reach out. I actually enjoy when I've had a couple MSU students like LinkedIn message me and we connect on the phone. So really don't hesitate.
Good for you. You have offices in Grand Rapids and in Lansing area, right?
That's correct.
Great. Zack, I'm so glad you joined me today. Thanks so much for being on Connect with KB.
Thanks, KB.
Absolutely. My guest today is Zack Armstrong, owner of Allied Integrated Wealth. I want to thank my supporting sponsors, Marketing Resource Group, Downing Industries, Governmental Consultant Services, AF Group, Public Affairs Associates, and Mercantile Bank. I also want you to listen to all of my podcasts if you can at connectwithkb.com. Until we connect again, go live your best life. I'm your host, Kristin Belter.